My name is Grace. I'm sitting on my couch, staring at my brokerage account, still in disbelief. On paper, I'm worth just over $12 million. It all started when our company, Novatech, went public. The NASDAQ screen showed our ticker, and the numbers soared. It was a dream come true, but it also brought back memories I'd rather forget. I grew up in a small town in Ohio. My parents, Tom and Linda, were hard-working people. Dad was a mechanic, and Mom was a schoolteacher. They were simple, honest, and instilled in me the values of hard work and determination. I was always the ambitious one, dreaming of making it big in the tech world. I moved to San Francisco to pursue my career. That's where I met Ryan. We were introduced by mutual friends at a rooftop party in the city. Everyone there was pretending to be social, but we all knew they were secretly scouting for job opportunities on LinkedIn between sips of their drinks. Ryan and I were both in the tech industry. He was a software engineer, and I was a budding back-end developer. We were both driven, convinced that if we worked hard enough, we could achieve our dreams. We moved in together into a tiny one-bedroom apartment in the Mission District. It was far from luxurious. We had a second-hand couch, mismatched plates, and we often ate late-night takeout straight from the containers. But it was our little world, and I thought it was perfect. One Tuesday afternoon, a recruiter from a small startup in Austin, Texas, reached out to me. The offer was incredible, a senior engineering role, full ownership of the back-end infrastructure, and 0.8% equity. It was a life-changing opportunity, but I knew it would be a tough sell to Ryan. I rehearsed the conversation in my head for 2 days before telling him. That night, we were sitting on the couch eating Chinese food from a paper box. I said, I got contacted about a job. He barely looked up and mumbled, another recruiter? Kinda same old, right? I quickly replied, it's different. That caught his attention. I explained the role, the equity, and the vision of the company. He smiled at first, a proud smile. But when I said the word Austin, his face dropped. Austin? As in Texas? He repeated. Ryan, we've talked about this. My life is here. My friends, my career. I'm not moving to some dead city, he said, already pulling back. I tried to convince him, it's not dead, and this isn't just a job. This could set us up for life. He shot back, do you want me to gamble my prime years on a maybe? We argued for hours, not shouting but having a calm, sharp, and final argument. The same conversation repeated over the next month, always ending the same way. One afternoon at a coffee shop near his office, Ryan gave me an ultimatum. If you take this job, I'm not coming with you. I felt a heavy weight settle in my chest. So, you're asking me to choose? I asked. Yes, he said. I imagined staying, turning down the job, marrying him, and resenting him for the rest of my life. 2 weeks later, he gave me back the engagement ring. By mid-March, I was on a plane to Austin with 2 suitcases and a future that filled me with fear. Austin wasn't the fresh start I'd hoped for. The first night in my new apartment, I stood in the doorway and listened to the emptiness. The sound bounced off the bare walls, and the silence was louder than the traffic back in San Francisco. The place smelled like fresh paint and cardboard. My suitcases sat by the door, as if I was still undecided about staying. I told myself it was temporary, just until I got furniture, met people, and stopped reaching for Ryan in my sleep. But the truth was, I was alone. I slept on a mattress on the floor for the first month. There was no bed frame, no nightstand, and my phone charged on the carpet beside me. It was a far cry from the romantic struggle I'd once imagined. I was cold from the cheap AC unit, ate tacos from food trucks because I didn't have any pans, and came home at midnight with my shoulders tense from stress, my mind still running through code paths. Ryan was always in the back of my mind, not in the way of a heartache but as a phantom weight. I kept replaying the events in my head, thinking about what I could have done differently. At Novatech, nobody cared about my heartbreak. They cared about my ability to build infrastructure that could handle large-scale data. The company was tiny when I joined. There were only 12 people in a bright, chaotic office. Whiteboards covered every surface, and someone was always microwaving something that smelled terrible. The founders, Jake and Lily, were like machines that hadn't slept in months. But their eyes were full of passion. They didn't see the company as just a job, they saw it as a mission. Lily told me on my third day, when she found me still at my desk at 10:40 p.m. Austin isn't the story. The work is, the impact is. Jake was blunt. We're building something that will either revolutionize enterprise data processing or crash and burn spectacularly. Either way, it won't be boring. At first, my life became a loop: wake up, code, have meetings, code some more, and then collapse onto the mattress. Some nights, I'd look at the ceiling and feel the full weight of what I'd done. I'd broken off my engagement, left San Francisco, and walked away from a man I thought was my future for a company that might not even survive the year. There were nights when I was too exhausted to cry, and other nights when I cried quietly into my pillow, embarrassed by my own longing. Slowly, things started to change. A data pipeline I'd built stopped crashing under load. A client demo went smoothly. Lily nodded at something I said in a meeting and wrote it down. Then, we landed a Fortune 500 client, a $2 million annual contract. I remember standing in the all-hands meeting, holding a lukewarm coffee. Jake announced the news, trying not to smile too widely. People cheered, someone cried, and others clapped like their lives depended on it. I didn't cheer, I did the math. If we could land contracts like this, we were not just surviving, we were building momentum. More clients signed on, and by June, we were processing over 50 billion data points per day. The office atmosphere changed. It was still cramped and noisy, still smelled of espresso and anxiety, but there was a new energy. It was no longer just about hustle, it was about belief. I started hearing words like board pressure and market conditions in casual conversations. One evening, after everyone else had left, Jake stood in the doorway of my office. He looked tired, his tie loosened. "Do you ever think about how fast this is moving?" he asked. "Every day," I admitted. He smiled, a small, private smile. "Good, because the board is pushing. They want us to consider going public sooner than expected." My stomach dropped. "That's insane," I whispered. "That's the point," he said. That night, walking home under the warm Austin sky, I realized something terrifying. For the first time since leaving Ryan, I wasn't thinking about what I'd lost. I was thinking about what I might win. But the universe had other plans. 2 months later, my name started appearing in tech blogs, investor chatter, and quotes about early infrastructure leadership. My friends in San Francisco started texting me, "Is this you, Grace? What the hell? Congrats, girl. You're everywhere." I tried to act like it didn't bother me, but deep down, I knew Ryan would hear about it. News traveled fast in the Bay Area. That night, lying on my mattress, I stared at the ceiling and wondered if he'd feel regret or see an opportunity. The all-hands meeting was on a Wednesday morning. The office was louder than usual. People were whispering in small groups, and the whispers stopped when Jake and Lily walked by. Someone had brought in extra chairs. Jake and Lily stood at the front, not smiling. I knew what was coming. Jake didn't waste time. "We're going public." For a split second, no one reacted. Then the room exploded. People screamed, someone dropped a laptop, and a designer near the window burst into tears and hugged the nearest person. Lily had to raise her hands to calm everyone down. "The IPO is scheduled for October 15th. We've priced the shares at $24. Early projections show we could open significantly higher." I sat still, my heart pounding so hard it felt like it might break a rib. My mind went straight to numbers. I owned 0.8% of Novatech. I stopped calculating halfway through, afraid of what the answer would mean. That night, I called my parents. Mom cried instantly, full-on sobs that made me hold the phone away from my ear. Dad kept saying, "I'm so proud of you." The weeks leading up to the IPO were chaos. There were press interviews, photo shoots, and company emails with subject lines like, "Have you seen this yet?" Novatech was everywhere, and so was my name. October 15th arrived. I woke up at 5 a.m. My heart racing. The market opened at 6:30 a.m. Pacific time. I watched from my apartment as our ticker appeared on the Nasdaq screen, priced at $24. Within the first hour, it hit $41. By the end of the day, it closed at $38.50. My phone buzzed non-stop with messages from former co-workers, old friends, and distant acquaintances. And then, at 8:03 p.m. A notification appeared that made my stomach drop. It was Ryan. "Hey, Grace. I saw the news about Novatech. Congratulations. That's incredible. Can we talk?" I stared at the screen for 10 minutes. Part of me wanted to throw my phone across the room, and part of me wanted to reply immediately. I waited until the next morning. "Thanks." "Sure. What's up?" His reply came almost instantly. "Can I call you?" We spoke that night. It was awkward at first, like two strangers stepping around furniture that used to be theirs. He sighed and said, "I made a mistake. I shouldn't have given you that ultimatum. I was scared and selfish. I think about it all the time." He continued, "I miss you. I miss us." He said he knew how it looked, that I probably thought he was only reaching out because of the IPO. But he claimed he'd been thinking about it for months and the news felt like a sign. He said he'd dated other women, but none of them felt right. He realized he'd let the best thing in his life go because he was too stubborn to take a risk. He asked to see me in person and said he'd fly to Austin. I called my friend Ava the next day. She'd moved to Austin around the same time I did and worked at a fintech startup. We met at a bar that smelled of citrus and ambition. I told her everything. She didn't hesitate. "Don't do it," she said. I weakly argued, "You don't know that." She leaned forward and said, "He dumped you because you were moving to what he called a dead city. Now that you're a multimillionaire, he has an emotional awakening. That's not a coincidence, that's timing." I thought about it for a week and then texted Ryan, "Okay, you can come, but I'm not making any promises." He arrived the following Saturday. When I saw him walking towards me at the airport, with the same posture and familiar half-smile, my chest tightened. We hugged awkwardly. We went to a coffee shop downtown and talked for 3 hours. He apologized again and again, saying he'd been immature and had prioritized the wrong things. He told me about the women he'd dated, a finance consultant and a product manager at a big tech company. "None of them were you," he said softly. He added that he was willing to move to Austin, quit his job, and start over. But something felt off. The way his eyes glanced at my watch, the casual questions about my apartment, and his curiosity about my plans. I finally asked him, "If Novatech hadn't gone public, would you have reached out?" He hesitated for a second. "I don't know. Maybe not this soon, but eventually," he admitted. 3 weeks later, he flew back to Austin. By then, we'd been texting every day. At first, it was just casual check-ins and shared memories. But then the tone changed. He started sending me listings of Austin apartments with fancy features. He said they could be a fresh start. That weekend was too good. We went out to dinner downtown, walked along the river, and laughed like we used to. On Saturday night, after too much wine, he kissed me. For a moment, I forgot all the lessons I'd learned. On Sunday evening, sitting on my couch, he said, "I've been thinking about the wedding. If we get back together, we shouldn't wait too long. Maybe 6 months. We've already lost so much time." I said carefully, "That's fast." He smiled and said, "Once we're married, things will be easier. Combining finances, making joint decisions, planning investments together." I froze. "Investments?" I repeated. He blinked and said, "Yeah. I started working with a financial advisor a few weeks ago." My heart dropped. "A financial advisor? And what exactly have you been discussing?" He hesitated and said, "Not your money specifically, but I mentioned we might get back together, and she gave me some guidance." I said slowly, "We're not even officially back together." He snapped, "I'm just trying to be smart." I shot back, "Smart would be taking things slow and rebuilding trust. What you're doing feels like planning a merger." His face flushed. "That's not fair. I'm not a gold digger." I asked, "Then why the rush? Why marriage? Why advisors? Why now?" He stood up and paced. "Because I love you. Because I want a future. Because I don't want to lose you again." I stood up too and said, "Then love me where I am, not where my net worth is." The fight exploded. He accused me of changing, of becoming cold, and of letting money turn me into a suspicious and guarded person. I accused him of seeing opportunity where there should have been patience. In the end, I drove him to his hotel in silence. He flew back to San Francisco the next morning. 2 days later, I got a text. "I think we want different things right now. Maybe we're just in different places." I didn't reply because I finally saw the truth clearly. This wasn't love, it was access, and I was done confusing the two. 4 months passed. The lock-up period ended, and I sold shares as my lawyer and accountant recommended. After taxes, I had just under $7 million in liquid cash. I bought a house in Austin, a simple place with clean lines, big windows, and a backyard that caught the afternoon sun perfectly. I furnished it piece by piece, choosing things because I liked them, not because they fit someone else's idea of success. I stayed at Novatech but stepped back from the intense work. I transitioned into a role where I could mentor others and still have a life outside of work. For the first time in years, my calendar had free space. I filled it with travel, dinners without arguments, and mornings without dread. Ryan texted me once around the holidays, saying Merry Christmas. "Hope you're doing well." I replied in the same simple way. Through mutual friends, I heard he was dating someone new, a woman in finance in San Francisco. I felt nothing, just a sense of distance. A few weeks later, one of his friends reached out, saying Ryan wanted to clear the air and talk again. I declined politely. Some doors don't need closure, they close themselves. Someone asked me recently if I regret how things ended. I don't. Ryan showed me who he was twice. The first time when he asked me to choose between love and ambition, and the second when he came back only after my ambition paid off. I'm grateful for both lessons. I trusted my instincts, chose the unknown, and built a life that doesn't need anyone's permission. I'm dating again, casually and intentionally, with no rush and no illusions. Turns out Austin has a great nightlife after all. Who knew?